in the meantime, let's talk to TE in Chicago, Illinois. TE, you're live with Eric and Jim. How are you doing today? What would you like to talk about?
I'm doing okay. How are you guys? I want to talk about the idea of separation of church and state. Do you guys, what is your guys' take on the Bible in the classroom?
Sure.
As a religious text or as a historical or my brain is failing me. Just as a reading text, literature. In what context?
Either or, it doesn't.
Well, it does.
I don't think it really matters.
I think it does matter, actually. If you're studying world religions, it's important to have an idea of cultures, and I think that religion is something that is very, very tied to culture and identity, and that's fine. But if you have a government that is teaching this religion is true, then you're setting up an unfair system. Because what's to stop someone from saying, okay, well, you should also teach that the Quran is true?
Well, I'm saying from a governmental perspective, like, does the government restrict the teaching of the Bible in the classroom?
Right.
Public schools.
Absolutely. Does the government restrict the teaching of the Quran in the classroom? Maybe we have different definitions.
No, I don't believe it does.
Okay, then
No.
It doesn't restrict the Bible either.
Right. In the sense that you cannot have a class on religion. So you can't have a Christian class that uses the Bible. You can't have a Islamic class that teaches the Quran, but you can teach either of those books as literature or history of religions or anything else, but not as a religion.
The reason why I asked the question is, I think I'm sorry, did you say something?
No, go ahead.
I spoke over you because there's a bit of a delay. I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, because I was saying most atheists, they take the stance of separation of church and state, that the government can't promote any sort of material that has religious paraphernalia attached to it. So that's why I'm asking you guys. I mean, I would agree from maybe if you're in college or something and you want to take, religious studies, that's sort of different than public schools having the Bible. So you would think that that's acceptable?
Well, what happens with a lot of organizations who are trying to get the Bible into schools under a wide variety of covers is that they're also trying to push Christianity. You don't see secular organizations pushing the Bible in to the public schools. You only see religious institutions and religious organizations, and in my experience, you only see those pushing the Bible, which means that they're trying to color it as in we're using this for secular purposes and then actually using it for religious purposes. And that's kind of where the problem comes in. It's, from my point of view, I can't speak for all atheists, I can only speak for myself. From my point of view, anytime I see a religious organization pushing the Bible into the school, I have zero trust in that organization keeping to the Constitution and keeping the religion out of public schools. They have no interest in doing that.
If you want to know whether or not it's fair, just take that application and apply it to someone you don't agree with. Right? If it is if it's equally handled both for you and someone you don't agree with, it's more likely fair. So if you don't mind the Quran being taught as true, and you also want the Bible taught as true, I'm guessing you probably wouldn't agree that that's a good idea.
Well, what I'm trying to say is that in the First Amendment, I see no restriction in having the Bible or the Quran in the public classroom. And so what I'm trying to understand is, like, so you guys are saying it's acceptable if it's under the guise of a secular agenda? Is that what you're trying to say, Jim?
Hold on. Secular.
Essentially.
I feel like there's a lot of weird things tied into there. Do you know what secular is?
Yes, it means something that is without religious or spiritual basis.
Okay. So medicine, Western medicine is secular, right? You go to the doctor.
Okay.
They don't say open the Bible to learn about medicine. There are tons of professions, right? Mathematics is secular,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I'm failing to see the connection. I see, when I look at the Constitution, I see restrictions and permissions granted by the government, but nothing that says secular attached to it. The word secular doesn't exist in the Constitution.
I understand, which is why what we're doing is we're trying to keep this conversation in a place that is useful. Because if you want to argue about the Constitution, I think that we have taken the conversation to where we're no longer talking about fairness. And I really do think that the conversation about fairness and equity is the important conversation to have. Right.
Right. But what I'm
so that said, let's agree on whether or not, we have an ideal that we share, and then apply it and determine whether or not our view of the government should change or not. Because I don't think that just because it's in the Constitution or not in the Constitution, it's necessarily good or just. Right? We can disagree with the Constitution and we can make amendments to it. We have. So what's more important to me is what you think. We want to know what you think and why you think it that way.
Well, I think I'm looking at it from the perspective of American history. And so what I'm trying to say is that, a lot of atheist organizations that I see, they tend to use this idea of separation of church and state to keep the Bible out of the classroom. And so from my perspective of looking at the Declaration of Independence, I look at the Constitution, this idea of secular doesn't seem to exist anywhere in there.
Sure.
And so what I'm trying to understand is, like, where is it that you guys take that? You guys say that the Bible shouldn't be in the classroom unless secular is attached to it, or you just
got it?
No,
have a completely different take on separation of church and state other than the Constitution. You don't.
Okay. Do you agree with Sharia law?
No, I don't.
Okay. Do you think that God's law, Christian law, should be the law of the United States?
I believe that it has been since the founding of this country. The Christian way of thinking has been.
Okay. Please tell me how that is different from Sharia.
I'm not talking about Sharia law. I'm talking about historical fact. That's all.
I don't care. I'm determining whether or not you understand that what you're promoting is the same basis that people would promote Sharia law.
But you should care, because that's not what the topic was that I came in here with. I'm not talking about Sharia law.
Yeah, I'm talking about fairness and equity here. I already said that.
So all I'm trying to say when I came in is talking about separation of church and state is in the Declaration of Independence. It says that we hold
follow
these
me for
truths to
just
be
a second.
self-evident.
Follow me for just a second, and you'll see it guide back. I'm on this conversation, but you need to follow here, please.
Okay.
How is you're advocating the government taking on or having always been Christian? How is that different from advocating Sharia?
Well, I've studied the Quran cover to cover, back to back, and obviously it's a completely different system than a Christian system.
Who cares?
So it would be incompatible with the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence.
Well, so here's the problem, though. The Establishment Clause of the Constitution says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. So when you try sneaking in the Bible into the school systems as anything other than an English book or a world religion class, then you are in fact using public schools to promote a religion. Also, we have the Treaty of AAA, which the opponents to that treaty even said that this is wrong because it clearly establishes us legally as not a Christian nation.
Well, may I respond to that points by points? I have a response to each statement that you said there.
Sure.
Sure.
I'll respond to it in reverse if I can. The Treaty of AAA doesn't say that. Actually, if you look, it was actually a war for people who aren't aware of it, between the Muslim pirates and America. There was some other treaties that actually took place beforehand. If you read the Treaty of AAA just carefully, just that itself, there's some quotes back and forth between both parties where they actually affirm that we are a Christian nation that is not like Europe. But in the Treaty of AAA, it clearly says America is not, we are not in any sense founded on the Christian religion, as it has an inherent hostility towards Muslim men. So it's not saying that we're not a Christian nation. It's saying that we are not like they are in
Right.
Europe.
Except
That's what
that
it says in context.
except that
Bible,
again,
this is
the
probably
opponents,
more
the
important.
opponents of the,
You made a lot of points there. If I can I respond to each thing you said before we move on? The Bible in the classroom, you said that that's not fair. The problem is that if you look at it from a historical perspective, the very year the First Amendment was created, Benjamin Rush produced a tract to promote the Bible in the classrooms. This was republished 30 years later by the American Tract Society and carried on into the late 1800s. And so it seems to me that at the founding of our government, the founding fathers did exactly what you're saying shouldn't be the case. And so that's where my disconnect is.
Sure.
Historically, the founding fathers did exactly this. This modern interpretation seems to be taking out of context what the founders meant by the separation of church and state, which is actually, the First Amendment doesn't say separation of church and state. It's a restriction, if you notice what it says here, of what the government can do. Separation of church and state came from the Danbury Baptist Church, from Thomas Jefferson.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Not the Constitution.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. What's up?
Hey, man. Okay. I'll grant it. Right? Just for the sake of this argument, let's grant it, because I don't care. Right? Slavery was a thing when this country was started. Does that mean that we should take a historical approach and bring back slavery? No.
That's a red herring.
Is right or wrong, or whether or not we want to promote those as values. That's why I don't care about
That's a red herring. But
Does that make sense?
So you don't care about the Constitution? That's what you're saying?
No, don't put words in my mouth. Listen.
I'm listening.
You're
going on to red herrings.
And during its founding.
We had slaves, but that's
okay.
not,
should we bring that back? Should we take a historical approach and bring that back?
But that doesn't have anything to do at all with America being a Christian nation. That should allow.
It does. Try again. Women did not have the vote.
Real
Should
quick.
we revoke the vote because we're taking a historical viewpoint of it?
Okay, we're talking about the historical significance of what we are as a country. Are we a secular society or a Christian-based society?
I don't care.
The topic entirely.
Whether or not you think it's right or just, because we as a society can choose to make changes.
We're on a different topic. I have no problem entertaining it, but we're on a different topic now, right?
It's sacrosanct that we cannot take that we cannot judge whether or not it's a good thing or a bad thing. Then I've got to tell you, you're late to the party. Amendments are there for a reason. They're called amendments, right? We're continuing to grow as a society. I don't care about the historical piece of it because there are tons of terrible things in our history. What I care about is whether or not it is just and whether or not we as a society moving forward should do it. So please.
So you think the restriction, you think that the restriction?
Oh my God, dude. Are you just waiting for your turn to talk? No, go ahead. What's your question?
I'm saying it seems like you're changing the topic. I have no problem entertaining what you're saying here, but we're on a different topic altogether, right?
Okay, cool.
We're not talking about.
You brought up, DE, you brought up as part of your argument that it's historical. Mm-hmm. Eric countered with, is everything that is, should we go back to the historical way everything was in the United States? And he used slavery as its specific point. Just because something is historical doesn't mean it's a good idea. That's the question.
That's not what so you're adding words to what I said then it basically.
Well, okay. So let me back up. Did you make the argument? Did you make the argument that because it's historical, that putting Bibles in schools is historical, we should continue to do it because it was historical?
Oh, here, let me maybe that's the problem. Maybe we should clarify it. And I have no problem going on to the slavery thing if he wants to as well. We can talk about the Bible if you guys want. But just to make it very clear, my concern is the historical facts as to what is actually written in our founding documents in relation to whether we are a secular nation or a religious-based nation, a Christian-based nation. And so my particular stance is, what do the facts actually say about the permission of the Bible in the classroom? So that's what I meant about historically. So now that we're talking about slavery, that's something entirely. Obviously, there are
No,
things.
no.
Historical. You don't just get to.
TE,
That's what you call a fallacy of composition. You don't take
you're
one
missing.
part of what I say and assume
TE,
that everything else historically is attached to it.
Okay, TE.
All right, you're on mute. I put you on mute, TE. So TE, the slavery argument was brought up as an example of something historical we should get rid of. And it still sounds to me like you're making the argument that because it was done in history, we should continue to do that. So I'm still not, so you haven't clarified anything yet. And I think Eric's on the same page with me. Are you?
That's the entire point of the slavery thing, man, is just because it's historical doesn't mean it's good.
Right. All right. I'm taking you off mute. Okay.
Yeah,
so TE?
Yeah, the point here is that if you want to say that it's not good because you guys are atheists and don't like that idea, I'm willing to entertain that. But I'm just concerned about historically what the facts are and whether or not people today who have an atheist agenda, the secular agenda, however you want to put it, are not appropriately approaching the facts as it was approached, by the people who created that amendment. And so that's what my concern is.
Sure. Here's the thing. I think that argument is one that can also be made for slavery, to bring it back. And I think that ultimately it's a fruitless argument to have. The one that is more beneficial is one where we determine what is fair and just, and we continue to make laws that continue to further our understanding of ethics and fairness in society. Now, if you would like to start a show called Talk Constitution, I highly suggest you do that. It sounds like you want to talk about it. And it sounds like that conversation is one that's a whole lot longer than one that we're going to have because this is a call-in show. That said, I understand what you're saying, man. I do. I just don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck because
how does a slavery thing attach to my
argument? I don't give a fuck because we have amended the Constitution as we as a society have grown. Even if it said constitutionally that the
First Amendment was amended.
Hold on.
It is the amendment. That's why we call it the First Amendment.
No. It wasn't amended. You know what that means, right? Was it amended?
Please let me.
We changed it since James Madison put it.
Wow, I think you're now intentionally taking things out of context.
You're muted. Okay, let's try this. I'm going to finish my statement, and then you're going to get a chance to respond. Okay? Even if it said in the Constitution that the Bible should be taught, even if it said that, my question there is, should we continue to do that? Is it just to do? My argument is that it is not, because it opens the door to others that you would probably disagree with as well. I think that your religion is on the same footing as anybody else's religion. And I think that while that is your personal choice, and that's fantastic, I don't think it should be taught to people's children in a mandatory way in public schools. So if you want to talk about the Constitution, okay, but I already granted you, right? I'm granting you. Okay, let's just pretend that it says that in the Constitution. Is it just? I say no. If you want to continue talking about the Constitution, go for it. I suggest you start a show called Talk Constitution. You're off mute.
Okay, so I'll just give one quick response to that. And if you want to, I'd like to talk about the Bible if we can.
No.
Is that okay?
Nope. You can respond.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I'm going to say that that's fine. I mean, that's what the First Amendment is there for, which has not been amended yet since, the founders put that in there, that, there's a freedom for religion. That's why the government has been restricted. It's there for religion. So, yeah, if Muslims want to teach their kids something, they have the right to do that in the public classrooms. And it's the same thing with Christians. And if atheists don't like that, they don't have to have that. And so, I mean, that's the freedom for everybody. I think it's unfair for atheists to ignore what was in the Constitution, what the founding fathers seem to have done the very year it was created, just ignore it and say, well, we don't like it. That's not right. You are going against.
When you say founding fathers,
an American.
When you say founding fathers, which founding fathers? Because Ben Franklin was probably a deist at best. Jefferson, I mean, he cut the Bible up. The Jeffersonian Bible, he cut all of the supernatural stuff out of it. At best, he was probably a deist. So which founding fathers were going around putting Bibles into the classroom?
I'm plugging back in.
Well, out of the 56 members who put together the Constitution, we know for a fact that 50 of them were devout Christians. Even
Good
Thomas
for you.
Jefferson, who put together the
Good for
Declaration of
you. Don't
Independence,
give a fuck.
he made it very clear.
Yeah,
So
yeah, Hugh, you didn't answer the question. Which
I
founding fathers were putting Bibles into the classroom?
yeah, but it doesn't matter. It's unjust. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, this is true. It is.
It's a red herring, and it's a rabbit hole that it's a trail that you go down. And honestly, I've seen it enough times that I hate it. I hate it because it distracts from the actual point. The actual point is it just? Should we move on as a society that way? I really don't want to sit around and jerk off a bunch of dead guys 300 years ago thinking that they were omniscient.
Right.
Because they weren't.
Yeah.
We continue to grow as a society, and we continue to legislate what we think is moral, because that is how that works.
Yeah. And I think the most telling piece of that is that, did we?
Oh, I dropped it. No.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
No, he's
okay. Yeah. I didn't realize you dropped him.
No worries. All righty.
Yeah, as to the just thing, I think that what the Satanic Temple does with every time they want to put bring the Bible in, they want to start bringing in their own material as well, is classic reason why you don't want to allow the Bible into the public schools. But anyway, so who do you want to go to next?